All right, today I'm in the Rattlesnake, kind of in the trails below Sheep Mountain, riding a trail called Marshall Woods, which this part is very overgrown and seldom ridden. It's a green trail. It's about 2.6 miles, about 600 feet of descent, and a little bit of intermittent climbing here and there. So yeah, this part isn't really much, but once you get to, I think it's Sheep Mountain Cutoff or something, it's one of the more ridden trails that goes up Sheep Mountain. Once you get to that, then this part becomes a little more busy, because this is one of the two trails that you can use to connect the Rattlesnake, or at least this part of the Rattlesnake, to Marshall Mountain. And so you would take this Marshall Woods, or at least the second half, depending on which trail you're on, and then you would take another trail, which I will do right after this, called Bear Right. So yeah, I just climbed up this one, and so I know it's really overgrown for a little bit, and most of it is absolutely a green trail, but there's some part of it about halfway through that gets into the woods, looks a little more fun, that, you know, I guess relative to the average Missoula trail ranking is maybe more of a blue trail, or at the very least like a dark green trail, than a green trail. So, all right, this is a bit of a flat region. Pop the seat back up and just pedal. But yeah, I would say that realistically, this half of the trail and the other half of the trail are really two completely different trails. They're listed as a single trail, which is why I'm riding them together, but most people are not going to ride this part. Most of the trail, except for a part in the woods there, is on an old road bed. And then there's the small part that's sort of the more interesting part that's not old road bed. So yeah, bear with me on this little climbing part. It's a short section, but gotta get through it. All right, so this is that more ridden trail. I think it's called Sheep Mountain Cutoff. It's the one that you climb up Sheep Mountain on. So we just crossed over it, and now we're in sort of what I would consider the second half of this trail that gets a lot more traffic. This part, maybe not as much, but you'll see it's more ridden in when you get further down. Not a ton though. It's still doesn't get a ton of traffic, because unless you're out for a really huge day of riding, you're either going to park at the bottom of these Sheep Mountain trails, or you're going to go to Marshall and ride those trails. I don't think a lot of people are going between Rattlesnake and Sheep Mountain in a single ride. But there are some people that like to torture, that like to do a lot of miles. It's a bit of a dusk ride. It's getting pretty dark. For some reason I decided to bring my tinted lenses, which might have been a mistake. But I really don't like the idea of getting bugs in my eyes, so I'm wearing them anyway. All right. All right, now we're getting into the section that I would consider a little less of a traditional Missoula blue trail, and a little more, or sorry, a traditional Missoula green trail, a little more either blue or at least dark green. It is a little skinny with pretty steep sort of sections off to the side. The trail itself is not all that steep, but yeah, I try to judge what would be a green trail based off of some people I know who sit solidly at that skill level and only do blues when they're sort of easier blues. And I would say that this is definitely would be one that they'd be less comfortable on, at least this part. Whew. it's interesting. It's not bad. It's a fun little section. If it was its own trail, without all the extra stuff on the flank, I would say it'd be an interesting ride. A lot of blind corners though. I don't expect anybody to be out right now, but it's always different when you're climbing uphill versus downhill. Not to mention it's just my first time riding this trail in this direction. Whew. Getting tired. Busy day at work. Just mentally drained. Not bad. Not bad. You can almost pump track some of this stuff to keep your speed. Some slippery pine needles. Alright, I remember coming up here, there's like a felled tree that some rocks built up that looked like there could be a jump, but I measured and my handlebars would not make it past it, so I'm gonna jump off and maybe eat a couple huckleberries while I'm here. Yum. All right, back on after that huckleberry break. Those are delicious. They're in great condition right now too, perfectly ripe. Especially out here where there's less traffic, right off the trail. They're everywhere. Maybe the busier trails, even though, actually, no, even the busier trails at Marshall tend to always have huckleberries right off the trail that you can find, at least this time of year. So this is another sort of flatter section. So yeah, there's that fun little section we just finished up. Then there's some more road bed here until the end of this trail. And just before the end of this trail is the turnoff for Bear Right, which gets you down to Marshall. So I'll finish up this trail and then I'll head down Bear Right. Oh, catch your pedal. This is definitely a good sort of backcountry ride that's not too far out kind of deal. So it's got real backcountry vibes and some pretty good views of town in different parts of it. Not really town, just the mountains and everything. And it's got that backcountry feel, but it's not that far. You know, the climb, I think, was like between Bear Right and this trail was like 4.5 miles or something. So you're really not that far out, which is good, especially for me since I'm still technically injury recovering. Woo! And I'm supposed to be taking it quite easy right now. Yeah, this part's not the most exciting. But like I said, if you're out more for the ride than you are for the thrill, it's a perfectly pleasant ride. wash out my front wheel. Alright, to the left here is Bear Right, but I'm going to finish off this trail to show you the rest of it, which is very short. There's not much left. I don't know, it's possible that the whole thing's climbing, which would be not super fun, but for the purposes of this project, I'm trying to do the entire trails. So I will finish it up and then come back around and do Bear Right, get back to my car at the bottom of Marshall. All right, that should be it. That is Marshall Woods. So yeah, the two roadbed sections they've got some good views, but are generally meh. And the middle section is relatively interesting, but this is more of a traverse trail you use to get from one place to the other. Not really one you're doing as a destination ride. So yeah, I'm gonna go back and hit up Bear Right.